founding executive officer of Vet Network Australia, which is a national organisation that represents school-based vet, and I now run a consultancy that has clients that include the Australian government. So I'll be your host today. Now, as we, and I'm going to introduce you to our guest in just a moment, but in doing that, let me, just a few matters of housekeeping. During the session, all attendees are on mute. That gives us the best quality audio. If we have everyone unmuted so you can all talk at the same time, it actually affects the quality of the audio. Should you experience any difficulties with your connection, the best thing is to log out and log back in. Most times this does work. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. Sometimes you get some variations in the quality of audio. We've just got to live with that. Remember, this is all being driven across the internet. We are recording today's session, so it will be there will be an email link sent to you, so you'll be able to view the webinar in the future if you want to, and you'll be able to ask questions via the chat panel on your control panel. You'll find down the bottom a chat window, and if you type a question in or a comment, I'll keep my eye on that and try and respond along the way. So that's the main stuff about how we're going to run it this morning. So let's get started, and it's my very great pleasure to introduce our co-presenter today, Lynn Wilson. Lynn was the 2015 winner of the Excellence in Language Literacy and Numeracy Practice Award. She's at Sydney TAFE. She's currently Head of Foundation Studies at Sydney TAFE. She's worked collaboratively with industry to address the challenges experienced by business and organisations in developing, in particular, Indigenous employment strategies, and particularly with regard to language literacy and numeracy skills. Her model of that she's developed, her model of good practice and designs for Indigenous pre-employment and other training programs have been the key to the significant number of employment outcomes achieved for Aboriginal people in Sydney. So a warm welcome to you, Lynn.
Thank you,
just,
mate.
I'm heartened to hear your voice is there.
There's been a few foundation technology skills, haven't there, this morning? Anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely, but we're off and running.
Yep.
Okay. So what we want to do in the session this morning, we want to talk to you about the benefits of going through the application process. We'll say more about that in a moment. We want you to get a grasp or better understanding of the importance of systematically addressing all components of the award category, in particular the importance of addressing selection criteria, and then, you know, if there are any particular questions, as I say, simply put them up on, type them into that chat box. Now, and we will be, I think we'll have this finished, done and dusted by 11 o'clock. Australian Eastern Time. I'm delighted to see actually the range of organisations across Australia, people and organisations who at least have expressed an interest in this webinar, and hopefully they'll, more than a few of them you will go on to actually put together an application. I think there's 60 odd people expressed interest in it. So what's the award about? Well, it recognises innovation and excellence by an individual involved in improving language literacy and numeracy skills in an educational community or workplace context. It's an important award. I rate it up with the equivalent in teaching, in the general teaching areas, the Australian Teaching Awards, and I think this is a particularly prestigious award because it recognises a very important part of the development of particularly education, training, and the development of skills. Australia, I mean, here in Tasmania, we have an enduring problem with adult literacy, and that translates into difficulties in the kinds of skills that we need for this state to develop across a range of industries. So it's an important award category. Okay, so moving along, let me now, actually go to Lynn, and what I'd like to hear from you, Lynn, is why did you enter the awards in the first place? What made you choose to enter?
Well, I was encouraged by my organisation, Sydney TAFE, and I mean, most of us are reluctant, aren't we? Most of us older Australians are reluctant to go through the process, because I've been part of a really large team for a long time and don't like spotlight shone on myself. But I agreed to it because it kind of represented something that we'd all been doing for a long time. And so I made that very clear. We were a large organisation, but the process was a collaborative one, and not Lynn Wilson, and not that. When I settled that within myself, I felt then a bit of a responsibility, and I felt a bit, sort of passionate about promoting what we do at Sydney TAFE, but also the whole concept of language literacy and numeracy. So initially it didn't sit with me, and there might be a lot of people listening, watching that might also go, oh, I don't want to put myself forward. But it's, you're not winning the lottery. You're not getting a round the world trip. You're doing it for a reason, and I guess that reason was to raise the profile of foundation skills. So to me, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty old. I'm 61, so I've been doing it for a long time. And a lot of things have been achieved, but a lot still haven't. And so I just think it's really important to be part of it. So that's why I went along with it.
Yeah. No, look, that's wonderful. Actually, what's been your experience of being involved in the awards? Can you just tell, what are the outcomes for you and for the promotion of language literacy and numeracy since being announced winner?
Well, the first outcome was major shock. I guess, to become a finalist is really an amazing experience in itself, and I was happy with that. Went to Hobart and was just become a part of an experience with students and other, people involved in the training side of it and businesses. So that was the start of it for me, being a finalist, and meeting up with my two colleagues in Queensland who are finalists, who are amazing younger women that, so I just learned a lot, and it repositioned myself and just gave me a bit more of a, bit more of a passion and a bit more of a focus on what I should be doing next in Sydney TAFE. But beyond that, when you win, firstly, a lot of photos. That was horrible. But I said to somebody yesterday who came to take my photo, you're 20 years too late. But after that, I mean, we're a large organisation, Sydney TAFE. So for me, one of the things, and for those of you who are coming from larger training organisations, the first impact is within your own organisation. If you're an L&N provider, then you've probably gone through a significant number of years challenging in ways because you're trying to integrate your practice with vocational training. Our most effective way of working is with industry, and so when you've got management and other key players in your own organisation recognising that it's important and that you've won an award for it, and then so it must be important. At home, that's the first step. That's where you see the first benefits. The second benefit is, of course, when you take that outside and you've got, I've had, TAFE directors interviewing and wanting to hear my perspective on things. So, I've been interviewed for little articles and things like that, and professional development, speaking at professional developments. And I mean, it's really only March, and it was only at the end of last year, really. So I'm imagining that will evolve as the year goes on. But really, I'm quite impressed with the impact it's had on my own organisation.
Yeah, no, look, that's fantastic. There are a couple of aspects that come from your comments. One is the Australian Training Awards do recognise organisations and people for straight down the line, the work that they do, the incredible work that they do. But the other side of the coin is that by recognising excellence, the Australian government can actually draw attention to best practice or to leading practice in education and training across the country, and that's really important. The government looks for models of vocational education and training that can be replicated or modified or used in other contexts. Okay, well, let's get down to the hard end of this, actually writing getting into the business of writing an application.
Yeah.
The first issue that you need to consider is the matter of eligibility. And with this award, it can be the application, it's an individual award, but as Lynn pointed out, it very much or should represent the organisation as well from where that individual is located. So relevant individuals, they can be colleagues, professional bodies, students, employers, industry, community reps, or it can be, so you can be sponsored or it can be through self-nomination. There's no problem there, there's no distinction. To be an applicant, though, you need to have the appropriate qualifications. All of this is actually on the website, on the Australian Training website, Training Awards website, and it'll give you sort of more detail on what those eligibility requirements are. You need to have had 12 months actual practice in adult language literacy and numeracy training, and you need to have completed a postgraduate qualification. And you need to have been involved actually in the provision of training for the last 12 months. So you need to meet those. They'll be scrutinised. Now, the normal process for these awards is they actually go to a judging panel that will shortlist and then interview a final group, and the shortlist, usually there's 3 shortlisted finalists who then actually appear and do a presentation before the judging panel. So that's the process. So it's a very thorough process, and it's an interesting process as well. So that's eligibility. Now, remember, just a reminder, if you do have any questions along the way, post those in that chat box, and we'll do our best to get back to them during the course of the session. Just briefly, previous winners, Freya Merrick DeSantos last year's winner, and Ross Bauer in 2013. Both these people, actually, I've heard them speak on a number of occasions, and their stories, as indeed is Lynn's, the stories are really, just impressive, the dedication and the work they do and the success that they have. So it's all of this information is also on the website as well. So it's an award that's been around for a while, and like I said earlier, very valuable. So what are the benefits of applying? There's some work involved. I mean, the Australian Training Awards are prestigious awards. I mean, it's the pinnacle recognition for training and skills in Australia. They're a prestigious award. It's taken very seriously, and so the whole process of selection is really thorough. There are a number of ways in which this happened, across the awards. There are for example, the Apprentice of the Year. The finalists actually come from each of the State Apprentices of the Year winners, and they form the final, the winners list for selection for the Australian Apprentice of the Year. This particular award is a direct entry one, and so the finalists come from directly from those direct entries. It doesn't have to go through a state system. But in terms of the benefits, yeah, actually, Lynn, what do you think? What do you see as the benefits of going through this application process? Are there any? Do you perceive any?
Oh, yeah, well, there are. There's a lot of. It was hard work. I mean, I won't argue, and it's always hard to position yourself in the centre of something. That's what I was saying before. So you've really got to step back and give yourself a break and actually acknowledge what you do. I mean, my inclination, because I've worked with such a magnificent team here, my inclination is always to say, well, they do it, not me. I just sort of help. but really you've got to remember what your role is. You've got to realise that you do, your critical role in if you are in teams, and that's hard. But the positive thing is that other people, I do a lot of work with industry, and so I've got a lot of relationships over the years, and they were happy to contribute, and in that process I reconnected with some people that I hadn't connected with for a year or two, and the result has been that we've got a program that we didn't run last year that's running again this year. So that's, when you're reconnecting with people who help support the process, your application process, it renews your networks, and it, just gives you a bit of a refocus on your career and what you're doing, and, what you can achieve. Well, I found it both draining and challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, and thanks for that. We've got some dot points in there as well that we've picked up through talking to previous winners and being involved with the process. You get recognition as a leader. You're regarded as a leader in your field. As Lynn said, it gives you an opportunity to actually review what you do. I've seen some of the School Pathways to Vet Award. They've used the application process, and particularly if they're shortlisted, the evaluation process to basically quality assure their processes. They use it as not quite as an ASQA visit, but it gets them to actually look closely at what they do at their own practice, and likewise with individuals. You get promotion often through the social media and other ways. Even you get a chance to refine your media skills. And out of that's the chance to actually influence people and increase the awareness of others.
Look, I've had the opportunity to I'm writing some tenders for projects that are really interesting, and it doesn't hurt that you've got, when you're asked for, the qualifications of the trainers involved and who they are. It really certainly doesn't hurt. Your opportunities to work in some of these exciting areas if you've got something like that award in your CV, I can tell you. It was mentioned in a couple of occasions with projects we've won.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The final carrot for applying is that if you win it, you actually take away $5,000 as a $5,000 category award prize, which,
I didn't know that until I got the cheque.
There you go.
That was very exciting.
and there aren't any great constraints on how you spend it. Okay, so in terms of the benefits, we've probably covered this, but the benefits of winning obviously are that you're you get national attention. It's recognition that you're actually a significant leader in your field, so you get propelled into the national spotlight. But all sorts of career benefits too, that your profile, as Lynn's just explained, your profile's raised, and you're more likely to find people wanting to hear you, wanting to make contact with you, wanting you to get involved collaboratively in projects and things like that. Okay, so now this is the really important part, is actually writing the application. So you've gone through the eligibility stuff, you're eligible, you've worked out you're eligible, now you need to address the criteria, and just generally we'll actually go through and look at these. Can I emphasise the importance of addressing these systematically and carefully and in line with what they're actually after? The reason being that judging panels they use the criteria to discriminate between applicants, and so it's the things like what you actually address through those criteria that allows for some sort of basis for judgment and comparative judgment between people. It's hard work. Most of the finalists have usually hard to discriminate between, because they are top top achievers, and all entirely deserving of the award. But the judging panel, their task is to choose. There's only ever one winner. We're not. I think I can never recall any joint winners of an award at the national level, and I think that's sort of quite a deliberate policy. So you need to write clearly, address the criteria systematically, and just briefly, I mean, all of this detail is actually on the website. But that first one, excellence and innovation, you'll find innovation coming up a lot in these awards across the award categories. What a Commonwealth is after here is unearthing practices and programs that are different, that represent new approaches and new ways of undertaking education and training. So the innovation is a high priority placed on that. So, the task for you is in addressing that. All right, you can lay claim to being excellent, but what's the evidence for you and your organisation you work with for adopting innovative practices, innovative ways of doing things, and it can mean using technology, ICT. I think particularly, Lynn, with LLN, there's a whole world of new IT applications that are being put to use or being developed now, aren't they, to support and facilitate language and literacy learning? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the whole issue around technology. If I could just share one of the things that I mentioned when we talked about innovation and technology, wasn't the way I directly use technology to teach. I mean, when you look at the sphere of foundation skills and what our challenges are as trainers, you look at a situation like I've trained our organisations, the organisations I work with in industry have really rigorous recruitment practices. And a lot of it's via technology with Aboriginal people who are not used to technology. So I address that by talking about the explicit training that's involved by Aboriginal people having to undertake LNN screening online, as well as actually unpacking things like psychometric assessments online. So, they did comment to me on, well, that's a different way of looking at technology. So don't just think about the technology you use. Think about what the technology challenges are for students as well in the area of your training and how you address that. And they are everywhere. And the technology challenges for us in getting people through rigorous recruitment practices was amazing. So we had to unpack it and really look at it carefully.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Just one further comment on that first criterion. Note the suggestion about collaboration. What you'll find with previous winners is, and you've heard this with Lynn this morning, a very high level of collaborative effort. It's not people just doing good stuff on their own. They're actually collaborating with a team, a group, or other people, other organisations, in a way that is, quite outstanding. So that it's worth noting the ways in which you work in a collaborative manner with people. Okay, just pausing for a moment. Again, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to type in your particular questions. Continuing then to criterion 2, the student focus outcomes. This looks at the area of teaching practice and the way in which teaching practice is impacted on students or clients. And the suggestions there are, include in particular the evidence for successful teaching practice. I've often found judging panels across awards actually look for data, look for evidence of performance achievement. It might be, qualifications earned, or units of competence that have been picked up. That kind of thing. The data stuff, actually, there's a place for it, so don't be afraid to use it. Obviously, the particular strategies, the innovative strategies you might use in working with people, and the systems and processes that you actually use for collecting information. Lynn, do you want to add anything to that second criterion?
Only that to remember that it's not just qualifications that are outcomes. In my particular area, it's jobs. And so I presented a lot of data on what the direct job outcomes were for students going through our programs, and other data about other industry people we work with as a result of a strategy. So there's different ways of using data. I think always I drew on a couple of case studies of particular students who were quite influential in themselves. They got awards, and how they've used outcomes of our program to achieve things for their community and their family, and I think that's their real outcomes too.
Yeah, that's an important one, Lynn. Judging panels actually like to see illustrations and colourful illustrations, and by that I don't mean pictures, coloured in pictures, but they do, if you've got any little vignettes or brief stories that highlight what you're talking about and demonstrate your achievement, then there's a real place for those, and they just lighten up the load. Remember, I can't remember what the actual total word limit on this award is. It's in the requirements. You need to read those. But I know with the large training provider, I was the evaluator for that a couple of years ago. They're 18 or 20 pages, and so every one of those applications is there's a considerable amount of reading. So you yearn for the things that sort of lift the image of you or the organisation, up and demonstrates that they're really up there, really can be distinguished. Okay. Then on to criterion 3. This is addressing the criteria around professionalism, leadership, and collegiality, and it's trying to obviously pick up on the, what is it about your practice that puts you in that high-level professional lead? And I suppose it's getting at leadership too. All of the previous award winners that I've had any dealings with for this category, all of them display quite clear leadership. They're looked to in their own communities and beyond as leaders in their particular field. And I'm sure you're the same, Lynn. So when you address this criteria, you need to, demonstrate how you work with people in the delivery of your program. You need to identify the groups and networks that you work with and how you work with them. Sure, mention your accomplishments. If you're, many of these cases, award winners, in fact, work as mentors, powerful mentors for other groups. So identify that, and also make sure you build in your personal professional development, your practices, how you keep abreast of things, how you keep up to speed with stuff. It's important because that tells a lot about, that personal development tells a lot about the person. Lynn, any comments on professionalism?
Well, I guess that was one of the advantages of me putting this together, because when you stand back, any LNN, any foundation skills practitioner would probably underestimate, until they really thought about it, the number of relationships and teams they connect with. Certainly with the other two finalists in Queensland, we spoke about that. When you started to look at what you do on a daily basis and on a weekly basis, the number of different groups you engage with in your job, because foundation skills and LNN, they're only, you don't teach them in an isolated fashion. They're always connected to a purpose and to another course, or to to a pathway to something else, or you really are always surrounded by people relying on you. So step back and just think about it, really. I mean, I think that's a good way of looking at what you should highlight in your application. Where are you, where you're positioned most, where people need you the most? And for us, I mean, there we had lots of examples where we work with in one program. You work not only for the industry and the client, but the electrotechnology teachers or the customer service teachers that work with you, and the community groups, and then the job networks that ring you up all the time. Just unpack what you do on a daily basis. It is quite amazing, and all of that. You are really then leading all of those groups and connecting them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Okay, we're just going along. I'm just trying to check the. Here we go. So there are 4 criteria. This is the 4th one. Links with industry and the community. And with this, there is a general interest, I think, in this award category. If you are to be a leader in your field, if you are to be quite distinguished, it's obvious that you've got a capacity to both work with and influence groups of people. So this criterion gives you a chance to strut your stuff there. What are the things that, how does your work ensure that you're responding to other people? So what are your strategies for linking with industry? Lynn, in your own case, you've said a couple of times you've worked pretty closely with industry. Are there any aspects of this that you'd like to share with us? Because it's an important one. I mean, good training outcomes invariably, are linked with employment and employment in particular industries.
Yeah.
But do you want to comment on?
Look, I guess people who are experienced may have gone through the Workplace English Language and Literacy program, the WELL programs, and we certainly ran, nearly 100 of those over 20 years. And so we were used to working with industry. We were used to running literacy programs in workplaces. But the other connection I've had with industry for the last 10 years is through employment programs. And so working with industry to target, and it's specifically around Aboriginal employment and their challenges that a lot of organisations face. So we've been working with different employers to help them with their recruitment strategies, and to get them to understand and identify how challenging those recruitment strategies are in terms of foundation skills. A lot of them are quite done by it. So, and once we've worked with one particular industry area, word gets out, and they've got the same problem, so they've heard about you, and so we've worked across lots of energy industry areas, but also with people like Coles and Commonwealth Bank and places that are trying to grow Indigenous employment in their organisations, and that's involved community, Aboriginal community as well. So, that probably was where I had my strongest case, I guess.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, one of the really important things, I guess, addressed through these awards is the way in which education and training actually meets genuine industry needs. And what you're just outlining, Lynn, is a perfect example of that, where you're responding to the recruitment needs of a company like Woolworths or Coles or whatever through effectively upskilling potential employees in language literacy and numeracy. It's a real problem. It's been more of a problem over quite a number of years in the schools-related vet. There's often the view that schools produce vet trainees who, if for industry, skills areas that aren't in demand, hospitalities, that's no longer the case. But that certainly has been a problem in the past, that there was no attempt to match genuine industry skills needs with what's happening in the training area. I suspect there are probably a few TAFEs around Australia that were probably in that basket years ago. I'll bet they're not now. So, so the important point about this criterion is, you need to demonstrate that your LL&N work is actually meeting genuine industry needs. Linda, do you want to say anything?
Well, I work with this in the world programs. Once you're sort of embedded in an organisation in a lot of ways, and you've got a long-term relationship, it's not. There are other aspects of their organisation and their daily operation that you get advised on, and so you'll find in those areas where I've been working with Aboriginal pathways, you'll also have people say, oh look, I've got a fellow that works over in blah blah in that area, and do you help people write reports? Do you help people do something else? Do you help people write emails? It sort of exposes them to the concept of foundation skills. A lot of employers really underestimate the critical role it plays, and it's an opportunity even through recruitment to see, for them to feel the assumptions that they make. But then once they know that you can get people through, they will then look at what you can do actually in the workplace after they're employed. And so we've done a lot of work once we get people into employment, then supporting them through their apprenticeship or their traineeship, or even working with managers, middle managers or, supervisors in some of their own core skills. So it's interesting. And it's sort of debunking the myth that foundation skills are low-level skills. That's something that we've been really pushing with industry, and I think this award does this beautifully. People have got to realise that you've got core skills framework goes from level 1 to level 5. And I go to places. I've done a lot of sessions with some tradies or guys who were supervising apprentices, and they'll bemoan the school system for not producing people with high-level L&N skills. And what I try to say is, well, that's all very well, but you've now got workplaces that require very high L&N skills, and so the gap's there that wasn't there before. So it gives you an opportunity to address a broad number of students, potential students and participants in any workplace.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Well, so we're heading towards winding up the session now. These are technical things that you need to look at. The details and conditions of entry, you need to look at those, and they specify obviously who can apply, the groups and individuals that can apply. They refer to the service program or training that meets the Australian qualification. Yeah, that's really important, and sometimes people lose sight of it. The Australian Training Awards recognise bona fide accredited national training, by and large. That's what it's there for, and sometimes it gets a bit understated. So what you're talking about, if you're addressing that business about the training that you deliver, it does need to fall under the Australian qualifications framework and its standards. The programs that you talk about obviously need to be current within 2 years, and look closely, please, at the written application guidelines. They're pretty thorough, and if you address those, remember, the bottom line is what you've got to produce is something that is easy to follow, easy to read for those judges, because if they trip up on stuff that's badly put together. I mean, we've seen some pretty ordinary cutting and pasting jobs, let me tell you. This is applying for a national award, and it's obvious that and not in this award category, I might add, they're applying for a national award, but they've done a cut and paste the night before, and it's all over the place. And look, you're really wasting your time. More to the point, too, you sometimes you get really disappointed when you know the organisation that's put it together, or in fact, are far more worthy of what they're actually demonstrating on paper. So yeah, you really need to put some care and attention to detail into that. All right, so some tips and tricks, and I suppose this is a lot of this is we've seen. This comes from our direct experience in working with judging panels and reading a lot of applications across a lot of award categories, and they're pretty obvious. I mean, address the selection criteria, because that's what's used by the judges to select. And do it a bit like you would a job application. You'd put a bit of care and attention to detail. The idea of, situation, example, outcome is a good one, rather than sort of just laying claim to a whole lot of things. Actually use some examples where you actually identify a situation, you tease out a bit as an example, and you identify the outcome. And if you can demonstrate through that you really are exemplary, then all the better. Look at ways that really make you outstanding. We've seen particularly more with the organisation categories, large and small training providers. You'll get applications from good organisations, good, sound organisations that are doing the job really well. Their training record is outstanding. But you're left thinking, what's different? What's their leading edge? What's their cutting edge? Why are they, what sets them apart from the other big TAFE colleges around the country, or the other big RTOs around the country? And that applies to those individual ones. Look at the things that make you stand out, that distinguish you, that demonstrate that you're doing something that's new and innovative, that's worthy of national attention and worthy of you winning the award. So give that point of difference. What separates you? What takes you from being just another really good LL&N trainer to the exalted heights of someone like Lynn? I mentioned before, address the criteria in an orderly way, write clearly, use an appropriate font. I'm not sure whether they suggest that in the writing guidelines, but make it as readable as possible. Illustrate with examples. Please keep to the word limits. They're there for a reason. And while judging panels are often kind when organisations or people might exceed them a bit, don't count on it. I mean, I've never seen an application dismissed because it went well over the award limits, but it's less likely to work in your favour if it's obvious that you've exceeded it. Okay. Any other tips and tricks you'd give, Lynn? You've probably given a few along the way through.
Only to have somebody else working with you. Don't write the whole thing on your own without having someone in your organisation or a colleague partner you in that process. You don't write objectively about yourself. I left lots of things out when I was writing things. And I think the other thing is you can get yourself into a space where you almost, I can't even explain it. When you're writing so much about yourself and what you've done, you really need someone to step back and unpack it and make it digestible and accessible to somebody else. So a second party partnering with you will take the stress off, give you more opportunity to shine, because you're less likely to, talk yourself up as somebody else. But it's just, you need someone to be able to proofread it, even if nothing else,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, finally, we haven't got any questions, so we will actually now head into the conclusion, and thanks. Just remember that you'll actually you'll get an email which will give you access to the video of this session, so you can actually look at it in more detail later. It'll also include the resources and links that might help you in your application process. I'd like to particularly thank Lynn Wilson for joining us this morning. She's provided some fantastic insight into what the process and what it's like to engage in applying and also ultimately winning the award. So thanks very much indeed, Lynn, for that. I'd just like to acknowledge too the Department of Education. I think Beth and Sally from the Department of Education have been listening in on the background, and also Vet Network Australia, Kerry Tawney, has set this up and dealt with some pretty critical issues as we got it underway this morning. So, and remember, above all else, if you don't remember anything else from this session this morning, deadline for application 31st of May this year. So still got plenty of time to get onto it, and we do obviously. The wider the range of applicants for these awards, the more prestigious, the more representative they become. And we're delighted, I think, that these webinar series over the last couple of years we've been using them. We're developing more and more interest. As I say, I think there were 60 odd people who had put in expressions of interest, and I think we've had at least 28 at one stage attending this morning. So on behalf of us all, the Australian Government, Vet Network Australia, thank you very much indeed, and best wishes for the for your applications to the Excellence in Language, Literacy and Numeracy Award. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn.